Hello everyone, my name is Wielgopolan. I work in the Institute of Geophysics, Polish Academy of Sciences, and today's topic is going to be not very serious maybe. I want it to be more like festive, but still it has some scientific background. So today we're going to talk about the most Christmas related animal of all, which is reindeer, or caribou, or hreindyr. We're going to solve that riddle soon. So what are reindeers? Reindeers are everywhere. Reindeers are prominent in our culture, in our pop culture. Holiday music and images, they basically pull Santa's sleigh like in this image here. And they're supposed to be magical creatures, and I personally heard some people doubting that reindeers are real. Well, they're very, very real. They have, in fairy tales, they have red noses, they have names, and they fly. But how much do we really know about this northernmost deer species? Well, after today's lesson, I hope you will know a little bit more, and I assure you that even though they do not fly and they do not pull Santa's sleigh, they're still very much magical. So reindeer is Reindeer tarandus, and its name comes from two different from hreindyr in general. And it is of Norse origin. In Old Norse, there was a word hrein, and hrein was for deer, and actually dyri was for animal, and or hrein was also for horned animal. So basically, it's a deer, but a very special one. And as for Latin name, Reindeer tarandus, it comes from rangiferlis, from reindeer, basically, and tarandus is a Latin word for an animal from the north. How about the other name that I mentioned here in the title, which was caribou? Well, caribou comes to us through the French language, actually from the word calipou. And the calipou was meant snow shoveler. That means the animal that is shoving through the snow to find some food. So now, as we know the etymology of its name, we need to acknowledge that actually there is no one reindeer. There are several types, and they have 14 to 15 different subspecies that are a little bit different. Well, of course, it's like cartoon-like image. Well, this is actually an image of caribou, but more or less it's like a reindeer exactly. So you see here it's smaller than moose and larger than a regular deer. And there are two major groups of reindeer. And one group lives in the tundra, and the other lives in the woodland. And they are actually divided according to the type of region the animal lives in, not their global locations. And so they are divided into species, and also ecotypes. And for example, there's woodland caribou. Like here, it's the largest, and the Svalbard should be somewhere here. Where Svalbard reindeer is actually the smallest of all of them. So they vary a little bit in size, in shape as well. So here are some facts about how they're built, about their body and their life expectancy and so on. So actually they're quite heavy. As you can see, they're smaller than moose but larger than a deer. So the average weight is like for up to 120 kilograms for a female and 180 kilograms for a male. So males, as usual, are bigger. And the weight actually depends on time of the year. And they live, well, quite long for a wild animal, up to 17 years for a female, and males live a little bit shorter. So this is their characteristic. They have rather short legs, white hooves, this kind of mane like a scarf, a furry scarf here, and those antlers, of course, and a very short tail. So this is how you recognize them and know that it's not a deer or a moose, for example. But caribou is another name that is also mentioned in context of those animals. And are they two separate species, reindeers or caribous? Actually, in general, they're the same animal, or almost the same animal. They're all Rangiverterandus. They are two different subspecies, and caribou is in a New World, that means in North America, and in the Old World, that means Europe, there is reindeer. And there are some differences between them. You can see a caribou here and a reindeer here. I didn't find a better photo for comparison. And the biggest difference between them is actually domestication. So reindeer are domesticated, or at least almost domesticated. There is reindeer husbandry, that means reindeer herding, and caribous remain wild. And that has several effects for those animals. In general, the scientists say that the Ice Age split the two groups apart about 200,000 years ago, and their genes, their adaptation to their environment are somewhat different because of it. So they're not totally the same animals, like 100%. And the differences are also, like I said, mostly triggered by domestication. So reindeers were domesticated, so they're a little bit shorter and stouter than caribou, and they have thicker fur, and they do migrate a little bit within a grazing range, that means looking for food, but they don't make very long migration like caribous, because some caribous make the longest migrations in the whole mammal, land mammal world. Also, the breeding season of reindeer has shifted a little bit to earlier in the year, not much, like a month. Also, reindeer has more fat than caribou. So these are the differences, but basically caribou should be, well, like here, should be, caribou are those animals that live here in North America, and reindeers live here in Europe. North America and also in Greenland we have caribou. So now you see the modern range of those animals. So they now live in Northern Asia, Europe, Siberia, Alaska, Canada, and Greenland. And earlier they were present more further south. So now they're exclusively live in the northern points of the globe. But when the Earth was cooler and there were less humans, and then they were not such a threat, their territory was much, much larger, and they were seen even down to Spain, south, during this Pleistocene era, of course. So what do they eat? This is one interesting aspect, because they live in the north and the food is rather scarce there, and they're vegetarians. They're totally herbivores. Sometimes, mostly by mistake, they can grab a lemming, for example, but generally their diet is totally based on plants. And so in winters, especially in winter, food is very, very difficult to find. For all the animals that eat primarily vegetation. So to prevent starvation, their digestive system evolved to allow them to use nutrients that are in lichens. Lichens are plants plus mushrooms, basically, a symbiotic type of organism. And basically, during the winter, reindeers survive by eating a lot of lichens, especially Cladonia rangiferina, which is not a coincidence because its name comes from the fact that Rangiferus eats them. They are also known as reindeer lichen. How do they find it? Well, they can shovel with their antlers, but they can sniff out the plant material easily. Their smell sense is very, very sensitive, and they can sniff through the snow even 60 centimeters thick. So this is what it looks like. What this lichen, this reindeer lichen, looks like. And in the summer, it's much easier. They have moss to eat, some grass maybe, and something more normal, we would say. But lichens required special modifications, special adaptation of the digestive system. One thing that hits us at first when we see a reindeer, or any deer, actually, for that matter, are the antlers. And reindeers have really special and actually almost magical antlers. So they're quite big, but normally in animal kingdom, antlers are generally reserved only for the males. Why is that? Because testosterone is required to give a signal for them to grow, to sprout. But actually, for reindeers, for most reindeers, both males and females have antlers. Maybe some of you could tell me what is the difference between antlers, like this one, and horns, maybe. Horns, like what kind of animals have horns? A bull has horns. And a reindeer has antlers. What's the difference? Cattle has, domesticated cattle has horns in general, where antlers are like a bone. They're like a bone, and they grow from the skull like a bone. And horns are empty inside. They do not grow straight from the bone. Actually, it's quite marvelous that they're like a bone, but they have no nerves. If you hit your bone, you get hurt. But when a reindeer hits its antler during a mating fight, for example, it doesn't hurt at all. So this is quite unusual as well. So back to those magical antlers. Why am I calling them magical? First of all, because both males and females have it, which is unusual for deers, like I already said. And male reindeers shed their antlers, lose their antlers at the end of the mating season in early December. So what we have here is a male reindeer with magnificent antlers in October, then losing one by one, November, in December, no antlers, and they begin to regrow in February, a new pair of antlers. Actually, reindeers are the only deers that lose their antlers every year, and every year they grow this magnificent pair again. So year by year they create this set of antlers. So one question for you. If you remember, this is something to remind you, this image of Santa's reindeers, 8 or 9 reindeers that pull the sleigh. Are they males, as their names indicate, or are they maybe females? Do they have antlers in those photos? Sometimes there are live representations of Christmas shows with actual reindeers, and they do have antlers. And Christmas is generally in December, And in December, a male reindeer looks like this. So all those reindeers are actually females. So females are pulling Santa's sleighs. And females, why do females keep their antlers until spring? This is actually interesting, because they need access to food. So they need to shovel through this snow cover to get to lie hens. And they need access to food because it's critical during their pregnancy. They're pregnant during winter. In autumn, the mating season ended, they're pregnant, and they need lots of food for their little ones. So, first of all, they pull Santa's sleigh. Second of all, they're pregnant. And another thing about reindeer antlers is that even though they're shedded every year, they don't go to waste. Actually, they're full of calcium and full of minerals, and there are lots of rodents and other animals that eat them, that devour them. It's a great source of those nutrients. So it's nothing goes to waste in nature. Do reindeers have any enemies? Well, yes, of course, they're nice and fatty and full of meat, and the northern ecosystem is not so rich in food, so they're a great prey for example, caribous are great prey for golden eagles that hunt for calves in the late spring and fall. Also, polar bears well, mostly polar bears eat seals, but sometimes they devour like dead corpses of reindeers. And actually, once an entire body of a reindeer was found inside a Greenland shark. But actually, it's not that Greenland sharks go to land and hunt there. Most likely, it's a case of near-shore scavenging. They're not migrating. Sharks are usually not migrating on land, but it is quite scary that they found an entire reindeer in shark's body. But it's Christmas time. Let's not go deep into less pleasant stuff. But because reindeers or caribous are very well prepared and very well adapted to this very harsh northern environment. Actually, it's like they're designed. They're perfectly designed in many ways. For example, they have no internal 24-hour body clock. For us, it's hard to understand because we have this body clock, but in the north, for the large part of the year, there's no shift between day and night, at least in terms of sun. So this is useful. This is useful for their survival, and it helps their sleep-wake cycle and metabolism cope with those long polar days and polar nights of the regions where they live. They run very fast, even though they seem a little bit chubby and heavy. But they not only run, they also swim like professionals, especially during their migration. They're capable of swimming in cold, strong currents. Another one of many of their adaptations is that they're adapted to cold temperature. That means they're keeping cozy very much. In fact, they're so great at creating and holding heat that they need something the opposite. They need to get rid of too much heat to avoid overheating, which is quite unusual in the Arctic. And how do they do that? So they have this fat, but their fat isn't just an insulator. It is also an insulator, but it's not passive. It includes a lot of a very special fat, so-called brown fat, that is heat producing. Actually, humans also have this tissue, but only as babies, but we lose it when we grow up. So we normally yellow fat. They have lots of brown fat that is actively producing heat, we might say. Also, they have a very special circulation system, and circulation system allows to control where the blood goes. So it's like when we are standing at the bus stop and it's really cold, at least here in Poland, and your feet and palms get so cold, and this will always also be the case for reindeers. So they're able to cut off or slow down maybe circulation in their feet, in their legs, in all the parts that are not the part of the center of the body, so that they don't lose too much heat through them. And another one is another evolutionary adaptation is their milk. It's sometimes called crazy milk, and actually it's also consumed even nowadays by people, especially in the north, as a sort of delicacy. Reindeer milk is said to be one of the richest and most nutritious milks produced by any terrestrial mammal. It has, like, the milk you drink is like up to 3% fat, 0 sometimes, but 3% that we normally drink is what we can buy in the supermarket. Of course, it's processed, but it's up to 3-4%. But reindeer milk has an impressive 22% of butter fat, and actually lots and lots of protein. So it's like superfood adapted for those for little calves that need this in this harsh environment. And their survival kit consists also of especially survival clothing. Actually, it's not clothing, it's fur, but reindeers have actually 2 layers of fur of their coats. There is an undercoat, an inner insulating layer, closest to the skin, very soft, very, very thick, very, very warm. And on top of that, there is a coat with longer hair. It is made of hairs that are hollow inside, and that helps additionally to insulate the animal. So they're thicker, they're not so soft, and because they're hollow inside, but they create this insulation layer, and their fur is able to trap air, and air also serves as an insulator. It provides extra insulation, but also I mentioned that they're great swimmers, and they're thanks to this trap between hair, they're keeping buoyant in water. That means they're not drowning easily. It's like they have a life vest on them, and it really helps during travel and through massive rivers, and also in case of caribous during migrating. As all the animals, they have their own language of allowing them to communicate with their mates, and actually they have lots of mates because they're very social creatures. They live in herds from 10 individuals up, even to a few hundred, and in the spring, few 100,000. And they eat, they sleep, they travel together in herds. Actually, I would like to show you it's springtime. It doesn't seem so, but it's springtime in the north. And what you see here are also people on snowmobiles who are herding them. but they would still migrate normally, even without being supervised by humans. So these are the herds. So yeah, it looks really, really amazing. And so they form those large groups, and so they need to communicate somehow in the group. And they use multiple ways to communicate. Some are normal, like the sounds they make, a variety of sounds, and some are less obvious. So this is one interesting thing, that their knees click like this when they walk. And these are the tendons of the knees that make a sound as they slip across bones and tissue. And this knees clicking allows to communicate. So when they begin to run fast, that means there is probably danger, or they need to turn or something like that. And when the clicking sound comes from the joint of reindeer, from those bones, the others in the back know they need to follow them. They need to run faster, for example. So it's like a warning signal. If others start to move quickly, this means, well, maybe I should move quickly too. Maybe there's danger. And there are also other signs to keep connection to others. They have a special gland in legs, and its leaves smell to the ground. And this also works, giving information about dangerous situations. So they produce this special smell, and the others know that the others left them, the first ones in the herd left them sign that something is wrong. And another one is keeping connection to others is when they escape something, they lift their tails like this and show the white side of the tail. And those who are behind follow those with tails up, and this is how the herd stays together. It doesn't scatter in face of danger, in face of panic, for example. So we talked about antlers, we talked about knees, we talked about fur, but another really strange feature of reindeers are their hooves. Hooves are these ones, like the feet, let's say. So these are two photos of hooves during summer and hooves during winter. And there's a difference. It may not be that clear in this photo, so I will explain it. In the summer, when the ground is wet, and their foot pads here are softened, so there's extra traction, so that they're adapted to the wet ground. And here in the winter, the pads get tightened. You see that? Spread, and they're tightened. And they have, thanks to that, they have something like, well, a little bit like in skates, that provides them traction in the slippery snow and ice. Allows them to not to go down in the snow, but not to slip on the ice. So those shrinking hooves are all about adapting to seasons. Again, icy and hard ground, they're shrinking and tightening. In the summer, they're soft and sponge-like, adapted for wet areas. I think that all of us heard a Christmas carol about Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer. Well, it came to all the cultures from the United States, basically, because Rudolph was a character created by one of the shopping malls networks. So it's all commercial about Christmas. But, well, Rudolph was basically the one with a red nose. And it's not entirely invented, imagine, because it's it had a little bit of true in it. So it can be red or reddish or pink for two reasons. One is quite gross and not as cute as Rudolph, and it means that they have some pathogens, they have parasites in their nostrils, and that makes them red, and especially in the winter, in the summer, they just push them out. And this is a gross one, but there is also a cuter one. They have a very special internal heat exchange system. So what you see here is an image from thermal imaging camera, and this means that each breath is warmed on its way to the lungs and also cooled as it exhaled. So the water vapor is condensed before it can be passed into the air. So there is a nasal microcirculation that you see here, because reindeer's nose is often kept a little cooler than the head and lungs. And once again, as a reindeer breathes out, the air cools in the nose. And because cool air holds less water than warm air, some water needs to come out of the air. And this happens inside the reindeer's nose, and it lets the reindeer save water and heat. So actually this changes while reindeers move, but in this thermal imaging camera we can see that actually they do have or might have red noses, and on this photo also maybe not that bright and glowing, but still reddish. And this one is about one of the most extraordinary features that I ever encountered in animal world, at least in mammals world maybe. What I mean by X-Men reindeers? Well, researchers at the University College of London discovered that reindeers are the only mammals, land mammals, that can see ultraviolet light. So we as humans normally see a narrower range of wavelengths, around 400 nanometers. And reindeers can see here up to 320 nanometers. And this range only covers the part of the spectrum we can see with the help of a black light. But what is the point of all this? So reindeers spend months of in an environment when there is lots of snow, and for humans to see something in the snow, especially something bright, isn't so easy. But for reindeers, some things like white fur or urine, they show up in high contrast in the snow because they see in this range, in this ultraviolet range. So they see totally differently from us, and they see actually more. And this is one amazing thing about their eyes, but the other thing is actually that they're changing. And they're equipped with a reflective tissue behind the retina that reflects light back, enhancing night vision. And they actually have one type of color of the eyes in summer and one in the winter. And also, they spend months in darkness. They have, if you're in dark, you have larger pupils, because this is how the pupils react to bright light. They'll get smaller, and when it's dark, they're larger, they're dilated. And reindeers live like for months in total darkness, so they have permanently dilated pupils. If you have permanently dilated pupils, you have swollen eyes, and swollen eyes are compressing the fibers. Well, it's changing the structure of the eye. So this is how it is changing the color of the light they reflect. So this is why they have different color in winter and different color in summer when there's light and the pupils are not so dilated. They call it chameleon-like eyes. That means they're changing. And of course, this is how we perceive animals, how important they are to us as human race. What you can see here is an old photo of a lady milking a reindeer. So yes, they're very much important, not only as a winter and Christmas accessory. Actually, reindeer herding was a lifesaver for many people in the north. It's conducted in 9 countries, in Norway, Finland, Sweden, Russia, Greenland, Alaska, Mongolia, China, and Canada. And actually there's also a small herd in Scotland. So this is where they're herded, and there are about 30 reindeer herding peoples in the world. And as for semi-domesticated or semi-domesticated reindeer, more than 3 million individuals of semi-domesticated reindeers. So current archaeological evidence seem to suggest that like 2,000 or 3,000 years ago, reindeers became domesticated, and actually the connection between human and reindeer started from hunting. Then herding was very, very important for people in the north. They were used for a variety of purposes. They were, of course, for meat, which is still consumed in the north as a delicacy. They're for milk, sometimes for transportation as well, for fur, this thick and very warm fur, for skins, and for antlers, for handicraft, or for some tools, or from shelters, and so on. Actually, there is a very specific and rather controversial use of reindeers, which is called antler velvet. What is antler velvet? This is an antler. Actually, it's not an antler of a reindeer, but another deer, but it's basically the same. During summer, when the antlers are growing, they're not like totally bone. They're covered with a fuzzy little velvet stuff, very soft one. And it is called antler velvet, and it is sold in for Asian markets, for traditional Chinese medicine, because it is believed to heal. And surprisingly, unlike many ideas of TCM, of traditional Chinese medicine, it's not like it's not working at all, because this is pure growth hormone. This velvet here is essentially a growth hormone called insulin-like growth factor, IGF-1, which is funny because IGF is also shorter for our institution. So this growth hormone is used, well, athletes are trying to use it, but it's totally forbidden. It's supposed to help healing, especially tendon injuries, sport injuries. And last but not least, this is how we come back to the very first story that read by those penguin authors. How did reindeers become so important for Christmas? How did they invade it? Well, it actually all began in 19th century with a poem that was read. It's in English or American culture, it's a very popular story. And this is for the first time where reindeers were associated with Santa Claus, San Nicolas, and also they were given names that are here. And then in 20th century, reindeers were popularized, especially in the United States, because some businessmen wanted to herd them, and in the United States, and like replace cattle with it. So they were proposing steaks, reindeer steaks, but actually it didn't go very well because cattle lobby was so strong. But in general, it was sort of a campaign to make reindeers a part of the culture. So this is it from me for today.